Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most legendary air defense systems in history, a weapon that quietly stood guard over Israel's skies for decades and changed the way nations thought about protecting their airspace, the MIM-23 HAWK missile. The story of the HAWK missile begins far from the Middle East, in the United States during the early years of the Cold War. At that time, air power was becoming the most dangerous weapon on the battlefield, and nations feared surprise attacks from fast, moving bombers and fighter jets. The United States wanted a mobile range surface-to-air missile that could be moved quickly and defend key areas. This led to the creation of the HAWK, which stands for Homing All the Way Killer. Unlike older systems, the HAWK could track and destroy enemy aircraft with high accuracy. It was designed to be flexible, reliable, and deadly against anything that tried to enter protected airspace. Soon after its introduction, many countries showed interest in the system, including Israel. For Israel, air defense was not just important, it was a matter of survival. Surrounded by hostile neighbors for much of its history, Israel faced constant threats from enemy aircraft. In the early years, Israeli cities, airbases, and military positions were vulnerable to air attacks. Jet fighters and bombers from neighboring states could strike quickly and then escape. Israel needed a strong shield in the sky. This is where the HAWK missile came into the picture. Israel acquired the HAWK system from the United States in the 1960s. At first, it was just another piece of equipment, but soon it would prove its true value. The system included powerful radar, command units, and missile launchers working together. The radar would search the skies, detect enemy aircraft, and lock onto targets. Once a target was confirmed, the missile would be launched and guided all the way to its target. This homing all the way guidance made it very hard for enemy pilots to escape. The missile could follow the target even if it tried to maneuver sharply. This made the HAWK a nightmare for attacking aircraft. The real test for the HAWK in Israeli service came during major wars. One of the most important moments was the war of attrition between Israel and Egypt from 1967 to 1970. During this period, Egypt used aircraft to attack Israeli positions along the Suez Canal. Israel responded with its air force, but air defense was also critical. The HAWK batteries were deployed to protect key areas from Egyptian air raids. They quickly proved that they could bring down enemy jets. Egyptian pilots began to fear flying near HAWK-protected zones. The presence of these missiles changed enemy flight paths and tactics. Just knowing that HAWK batteries were nearby made pilots more cautious. But the most famous moment for Israel's HAWK missiles came during the Yom Kippur War in 1973. This war began with a surprise attack by Egypt and Syria. Israeli forces were caught off guard in many areas. Enemy aircraft tried to strike Israeli airbases, cities, and military positions. In those critical early days, air defense systems had to work perfectly. The HAWK batteries went into action. They began shooting down attacking aircraft, helping to protect vital targets. In several cases, HAWK missiles destroyed enemy jets that were attempting low and medium altitude attacks. This gave Israel precious time to reorganize its forces. It also saved countless lives by stopping air raids from reaching their targets. Enemy pilots soon realized that flying into Israeli airspace was extremely dangerous. The HAWK system did not just shoot down planes, it shaped the battlefield. Enemy air forces were forced to change how they operated. They had to fly higher, use different routes, or rely on other methods to attack. This reduced their effectiveness. Israel's air defense network, with the HAWK as a key part, helped balance the air war. While Israeli fighter jets gained fame for their dogfights, the HAWK worked quietly in the background. It was not glamorous, but it was deadly. One reason the HAWK was so successful was its ability to be upgraded. The original version was good, but technology kept moving forward. Over the years, new versions of the HAWK were developed. These upgrades improved radar, guidance, and resistance to enemy jamming. Israel was not just a user of the system, it also helped improve it. Israeli engineers and military experts studied how the HAWK performed in real combat. They found weaknesses and looked for ways to fix them. This experience made the system even better. Israel created its own modifications and improvements. These changes made the HAWK more suited to the Middle Eastern battlefield. The system became more reliable in hot, dusty environments. It also became better at dealing with electronic warfare. Enemy forces often tried to jam radar signals. They wanted to confuse air defense systems, But the improved Hawk could still find and track targets. This made it even more dangerous for attacking aircraft. The Hawk was not only used to defend cities. It was also used to protect military bases, troop concentrations, and important infrastructure. Wherever there was a critical target, a Hawk battery could be placed nearby. Because the system was mobile, it could be moved when needed. This flexibility was very important in fast, moving wars. If the front line changed, the Hawk could move too. This kept important areas protected even as the battle shifted. Over time, the Hawk became more than just a weapon. It became a symbol of Israel's determination to defend itself. It showed that Israel would not rely only on fighter jets. It would also build strong defenses on the ground. This balanced approach made Israeli airspace one of the most dangerous in the region for enemy aircraft. Pilots knew that even if they avoided Israeli fighters, they still had to face powerful missiles from the ground. The reputation of the Hawk spread across the Middle East. Enemy air forces studied it carefully. They tried to find ways to defeat it. Some tried to fly very low, hoping to stay under radar. Others tried to use electronic countermeasures, but many still fell victim to the missile. Each shootdown added to the legend of the Hawk. It became known as a silent guardian, always watching the skies. Even when there was no war, the Hawk was always ready. Its crews trained constantly. They practiced detecting targets, tracking them, and firing missiles. This training ensured that when real attacks came, there would be no hesitation. The system had to work in seconds. From detection to destruction, everything had to be fast and precise. The soldiers who operated the Hawk knew that a single mistake could cost lives. So they treated their job with extreme seriousness. Life in a Hawk unit was demanding. Operators had to understand radar, electronics, and missile systems. They had to stay calm under pressure. In a real attack, alarms would sound, screens would light up, and commands would come quickly. There was no time to panic. The success of the system depended on teamwork. Radar operators, commanders, and launcher crews all had to work together perfectly. This teamwork was one of the hidden strengths of the Hawk. As years passed, new air defense systems appeared. Some were longer range, some were more modern. But the Hawk did not disappear overnight. It continued to serve for many decades. Even when newer systems arrived, the Hawk was still useful. It could cover areas that did not need the most advanced defenses. It could act as a second line of defense behind more modern systems. This layered defense made Israel's airspace even safer. The Hawk also played a role in training. New air defense crews could learn basic skills on the system. They could understand how radar and missiles worked. This experience helped them later when they moved to newer systems. In this way, the Hawk helped shape generations of Israeli air defense soldiers. The influence of the Hawk went beyond Israel. Many countries around the world used this system, but Israel's experience with it was unique. Few nations used it in as many real combat situations. This gave Israel valuable knowledge. That knowledge later helped Israel develop its own air defense systems. Systems like Arrow, David's Sling, and Iron Dome did not appear from nowhere. They were built on decades of experience, including lessons learned from the Hawk. In many ways, the Hawk was the teacher. It showed what worked and what did not. It showed how important air defense really is. When people talk about modern Israeli air defense, they often mention Iron Dome. But before Iron Dome, before Arrow, there was Hawk. It was the system that proved air defense could save a nation. It was the system that protected cities, bases, and soldiers in some of Israel's hardest moments. Without it, the cost of war could have been much higher. The design of the Hawk was also interesting. It was not a single weapon, but a whole system. Radar, control units, and missiles all worked together. This idea of a network defense became very important later. Modern systems use the same basic idea, just with more advanced technology. In that sense, the Hawk was ahead of its time. It showed the future of air defense. Another reason the Hawk became legendary was its reliability. In war, equipment often fails. Dust, heat, stress, and constant use can break machines, but the Hawk proved to be strong. It could work in difficult conditions. It could be repaired in the field. This made it trusted by the soldiers who used it. Trust is very important in war. When soldiers believe in their equipment, they fight with more confidence. The Hawk gave Israeli forces that confidence. They knew that even if enemy aircraft appeared, they were not helpless. They had a powerful shield watching the sky. This psychological effect was almost as important as the physical one. It changed how people felt about safety. Civilians also felt more secure knowing that air defense systems were protecting them. Although they could not see the hawk most of the time, they knew it was there. They knew that someone was watching the sky for danger. This helped people continue their lives even during tense times. Of course, no system is perfect. The hawk also had limits. It was not designed to stop every kind of threat. As technology advanced, new types of missiles and aircraft appeared. Some flew very low, some were very fast, some were harder to detect. This meant that new systems were needed, but that does not reduce the importance of the hawk. Every system belongs to its time, and in its time, the hawk was one of the best. When Israel finally began to retire the hawk from frontline service, it was the end of an era, but its legacy did not disappear. The lessons learned from decades of using it remained. The experience of fighting air wars with the hawk shaped Israeli military thinking. It taught that defense is just as important as offense. It taught that technology, training, and teamwork must go together. Many of the officers who worked with the hawk later helped build newer systems. They carried their experience forward. In museums and military bases, parts of the hawk system can still be seen. They are reminders of a different time, a time when jets flew lower, missiles were simpler, and wars looked different. But they also remind people of courage, skill, and determination. They remind people of the soldiers who stood watch day and night, ready to defend their country. The story of the hawk in Israel is not just about a weapon. It is about survival. It is about learning from every battle. It is about turning experience into strength. The hawk helped Israel survive some of its most dangerous years. It helped protect the sky when threats came from every direction. It became a silent hero of Israeli defense. When historians look back at Israel's military history, they often focus on famous battles and pilots. But behind those stories, there is always the quiet work of air defense. The hawk is a perfect example of that. It did not seek attention. It simply did its job, and it did it well. Today, technology has moved far beyond the original hawk design. Modern missiles are smarter, faster, and more accurate. Radar is more powerful and more precise, but the basic idea is still the same. Protect the sky, protect the people. This idea was proven again and again by the hawk. That is why it deserves to be remembered. It was not just an American missile used by Israel. It became an Israeli legend. It became part of the story of how a small nation defended itself against many enemies. It showed that with the right tools and the right people, even the sky can be defended. So when we talk about Israel's air defense today, we should remember where it all started. We should remember the soldiers who operated old radars and heavy launchers. We should remember the missiles that flew up into the sky to stop danger.